Hi everyone, Ollie here. Welcome back to the channel once again. This is going to be a bit of a different video, only because, well, the subject matter of this is basically how busy I've been, what exactly I've been up to, and why the weekly vlog videos haven't been coming out. Because basically I've kind of fallen into a bit of a trap again that I have been in before. And I think I've mentioned it in my kind of reflective writing and things to myself that, well, basically what's happened is I think I've committed that age-old cardinal sin of trying to take too much on at once, trying to take too much extracurricular responsibility. And there are some fireworks going on outside, which are very unhelpful right now. And not that that's not anything totally normal. I think that's something we all do from time to time, but I've had to kind of back off and think a bit why, even when I've identified that this is a problem, or at least something that I'm prone to doing that is maybe not so good for my kind of health and well-being. I've identified this as a problem. Why do I still go back to that? And I think the reasons for that are going to be very different for different people. And sorry that I keep scratching my face, but we've got a no shaving rule going on in the house right now, hence the sort of bum fluff attached to my face. And so anyway, I've got to kind of sit down, or I have sat down and thought, why do I do this? And I think there's a few reasons, and this is just personal to me. I don't know what anyone else's reasons for doing this are, but the first one is that I like to be kept busy. Not that I have a short attention span, because I don't think that's true, but I like to be doing something whenever I have the possibility to do so. It can be, it can be reading if it's going to better me in some way. It could be studying. It could be doing some project. I've been trying to learn a lot of electronics recently, go over my kind of basic coding knowledge. I would just like to think that my time is spent as productively as possible. I'm very aware in a nihilistic kind of way that lifespan is limited, but not just even lifespan. I mean kind of educational lifespan, and by which I mean time before I'm into a full-time career. Being in university, even though this is a very time-intense course, it still does not reflect what my working life will probably be like. Therefore, I have the most free time now. I'm not tied down with any sort of personal responsibility, so I have ample time in which to do personal projects and projects with other people if I want to do them. The second big thing is career progression, I guess on that same kind of note. This will actually tie into a video that I'm going to do soon about what sort of specialty I might be interested in, or what ideas I have about specialty. But because we are on, again, a very time intensive course, there is a lot of legwork that I feel like I need to be doing in order to keep par with those medical students that would have more time during their 5 or 6 years of study. And because I'm only going to get busier during the course, essentially, I kind of need to be on stuff now. I think another big component, for better or worse, is it might be a kind of narcissistic tendency of mine. I'm not quite sure whether that is the word, but I think I've come to the quite sad conclusion that my self-worth can be measured by public perception. And someone actually, in conversation I had with them, kind of exposed that to me more than I'd necessarily like to admit, where we're talking, why do you do the YouTube videos, and why do you get yourself roped up in all these projects? And to a point it is because I think that being seen to be doing things can only be beneficial for me, and that's something that I feel quite good about people associating me with that, because I feel productivity it tends to be a positive. But that brings me, I think, to the real crux of this, where the mantra that I usually go with whenever I'm working on projects, particularly with other people, I tend to want to do a smaller number of things very well. So if you're setting up a platform, well, if I'm setting up a platform to do something, I would rather have it do a smaller number of things very well than try to attempt a very large, ambitious number of things, and because it's overly ambitious, kind of grind to a halt under its own weight. So whenever people come to me for advice or ask my opinion on these kinds of things, that's what I tend to say. Small number of things done well, and carve out your kind of niche. But then obviously when it comes to myself, and I've done this kind of forced self-reflection, I don't do this. I will kind of blindly accept as many roles and responsibilities as humanly possible to fill up my time. But then what happens is you reach a point where you are fundamentally pretty saturated and you actually can't give the time that these individual roles need. You don't have enough time to adequately fill all of them, so you'd have been better off sticking to a smaller number to begin with. So then the next step, once I think I'd kind of come to terms with that was the situation, and that is the situation that I'm in. I don't know how closely you all follow the videos, but I think it's probably come across that I am doing a lot of different things, and it's not that I'm not excited to be doing them. I do, as many things as I possibly could because they're all very exciting, and I'm involved in setting up a lot of these projects. But setting up is the key word, because setting up a project, whether it's a platform or a YouTube channel or a website or a new society or something, the acute phases, actually setting these things up, takes more time than actually running them once they're established. There's a lot more groundwork to do, and basically I've found that my entire day from start to finish is consumed with tasks that I'm not actually even able to get finished to the standard that I'd quite like. So at that point, I have a tangible form of evidence that this position is not a fantastic one to be in. So how am I going to deal with it? And what I actually did, and this was something that I told myself last year I would do, because for any of you that have seen the video that I made about my mental health, particularly towards the end of last year, I said, if I think that something might be going wrong or becoming pathological, I will go and seek help, like immediately, before something actually happens, even when I just suspect something might be going on. So I actually did contact someone at the medical school who I kind of trusted to give me some good support, and that was handled very well. And to be honest, it was maybe a waste of their time, but what I found that I was doing was I was able to vent these things, and actually saying them out loud to another person is very therapeutic. And from that meeting I got the beginnings of kind of a system, or some suggestions of a system that I could use to prioritize my tasks. But something I didn't expand on before was another reason, well, it was linked to one of the ones that I already said, this career progression. Because I'm quite career focused, I would like to think quite driven and quite conscientious when it comes to my work. But on top of that, there is a certain amount of kind of neuroticism and anxiety. What if I decide I want to do something and suddenly the door is kind of locked closed to me? I've not done the requisite groundwork, or not had the correct opportunities, but not made the correct opportunities for myself. Because that's my general attitude, is that if you want something hard enough, you can actually make it happen if you go about it in a smart way. And again, this is going to sound very self-aggrandizing, but I would like to think that I'm reasonably good. If I know what my end goal is, I'm reasonably good at plotting a path to get there. But because medicine is so kind of wide and nebulous, there's so much you can do, and there's so much that I have seen and so much that I haven't seen, infinitely more that I haven't seen. That means that I don't necessarily have a concrete end goal. Obviously, I would like to be a doctor of some kind. I think I might like to be a surgeon of some kind, but the space is so kind of vast and uncharted in terms of that end goal, that's meant that I accept a lot of roles and responsibilities that are really quite scattered, because well, it's a scattergun approach, I suppose. If I take 6 roles on and then one of them turns into something good that eventually puts me on a path that I want to be on, then that's one way you could go about it. I guess like spread betting. But the problem then comes, because this is medicine, graduate medicine, where the standards for everything that you might want to do are substantially higher than what they would have been when I was doing my undergraduate degree, for example. It actually takes a lot more resources in terms of kind of person energy and time to make things happen, particularly if you want something spectacular to come off. And compounding that is, I'm hesitant to use the word control freak about myself, but what I do mean to say is that I'm very bad historically at delegating tasks, because there's kind of the old saying, if you want something done right, do it yourself. And I think in there's an inherent assumption that the something done right, it's only your perception of what that right is. If you give that task to someone else and they don't do it how you want it, you might be upset about that, but actually the product that they come up with might be better fundamentally than what you had imagined. And I realised that, having just seen the time on my camera, that this has been a very long and very rambly video. Basically, a quick summary: I have taken on too many positions to be comfortable with it at this point, and that means that I feel that I am not able to fulfill some of those positions as well as I would otherwise be able to, a lot of which stems from the fact that the defined end goal that I have historically been used to working with doesn't really exist, because I'm lacking a lot of informative experience. And whether that's down to my own kind of immaturity, or how new I am to this field and this environment, or just some sort of short-sightedness, I don't know, but it doesn't really matter for the purposes of processing this. I think I've just got to become more useful to the idea of working without everything being set in stone. I guess uncertainty is one of those things that in medicine is always going to be there anyway. But then why make the video at all? I think because I would like to think that there are lots of other people out there like me who maybe do the same thing. I bet that people wanting to go to medical school probably do fit into that bracket, because the process selects for those sort of type A personalities. And I just thought it would be a good opportunity to apologise for the lack of regular content that some of you maybe would have wanted to see. I have been trying to do the blog during this time, but again, that's been much more sporadic because there's been a lot more going on. But the other big thing is that I set out, I guess, before I even came here, to record my med school journey, as it were, and this has been going on for maybe a month, this kind of feeling, and it's now become a kind of ingrained important part of the journey, and I do need to try harder to learn from these experiences. I fall very much prey to the same trap that I think a lot of people do, where you're constantly comparing yourselves to your peers, and in medicine, particularly at medical school, that's really, really dangerous, because you're dealing with like the 1%. Do you know what I mean? It's particularly on my course, where you think it would be people who are maybe in the top 10-20% of the year in their previous degrees. You're no longer working in that pool, you're now working in a pool where you've kind of taken off that top portion and put them all in one tank. There was a really good quote I read somewhere the other day. It goes something like, the reason why depression and anxiety is so high among medical students is that you take people who are used to being in the top 10% of their cohort, and then you make 50% of them statistically below average. And the standards and the stakes just feel so much higher generally, but I know that that's not how it should be. We should all be trying to kind of work with one another and make sure that there's the most opportunity for one another to succeed. It's not like there's any shortage of doctors. But yes, I think consider this a short reflection on my part. It's like 11 o'clock and I've got a couple more hours of work to do this evening, but very much self-induced work, and I will kind of keep you updated on how all this management is going. So take care, guys. Hopefully we'll get back to the regular content soon, but I just wanted to kind of update you all on how things were going and maybe get some of this stuff out in the open. Take care. Bye for now.